Preordain.
Yeah.
Something oh, that was 2 sneak attacks.
2 sneak attacks and a preordain.
I mean, don't you want that Emrakul in your hand now? Like, if you hit a sneak attack, doesn't it just end the game?
It does, but like, if he survives this turn, the game's over. Like, he gets to hit with Gristlebrand for 7 and
draw
then gains
7.
Gains
Okay,
life.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Is that a storm counter that we see there,
Yeah.
or a mana count? That's
Oh,
mana.
yeah. So we've got D20 for Storm and
Untap all 3.
the D12 for mana.
So Feline is now attempting to go off, right? I mean,
Yep.
this is the turn. That is a time spiral.
Yep. So this is a draw 7, untap your lands.
And all players are doing this, right?
Yep.
So can this draw Corbett into a bunch of Force of Wills that he can then use?
It certainly
or?
can. It
Okay.
certainly can. So one thing to note, so Corbett, again, he declined to play a land before he cast the Show and Tell. If he had played the City of Traders in his hand, he could have paid 2 less life, and he'd have a draw 7 here.
Right.
So life totals actually ended up being important here.
Mm-hmm.
So lands have been untapped. I think the red die is actually the high tide count.
That 2 have been resolved?
That each island produces 2 mana.
Ah, okay.
Because that hasn't been changing, and the amount of mana that's floating has definitely been changing.
Yeah, okay. I think you're right.
And then we have a storm count, but the storm count is actually irrelevant because you can't brain freeze out your opponent here.
Yeah, because he's got
because of the
Emrakuls.
Emrakuls, unless Corbett draws all the Emrakuls. So we've got an Intuition, a Ponder. Well, let's see what's going on from the high tide
There's
side.
an Emrakul in his hand for sure.
Yeah. So
Merchant Scroll.
Scroll, and there's a couple Preordains. It looks like I think there's another high
I
tide.
see a Spell Pierce there for Corbett.
Okay.
That's not going to get a whole lot done here, I don't think.
Probably not, although...
You can force Feline to tap an extra land here, which can
Yeah.
matter, right? But
Well, I mean, so when
high tide.
High Tide tries to go and resolve another spell, like if they try to go and resolve the High Tide here, a Spell Pierce means that an additional land is going to have to be tapped.
Right, so that's fewer mana net.
Yeah. That said, High Tide should have a land drop here. I wonder if they actually just bricked on lands.
That would be pretty tough having drawn 7, you'd think, but
Yeah.
certainly possible.
So we have a Brainstorm in response to the Spell Pierce with 1 floating. Which, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of.
Of the Spell Pierce here?
No, of the Brainstorm in response. I think because you're spending 1 mana anyways out of the 2. And so if you end up having to pay for the Spell Pierce, you have to tap your other island, and so you're getting less benefit off of this High Tide that's on the stack if you resolve it.
You know, each of these islands being tapped
Takes
takes away 2 to 3 mana.
Yeah. You like this is when the taxing counters actually matter, is when each time you have to tap an island instead of paying from your pool, and and so Corbett is almost getting a 2-for-1 in that he's going to get 2 islands tapped instead of 1 island tapped.
Okay, and that's pretty critical here.
Yeah. So if High Tide ends up paying, has an island, and High Tide can potentially then play an island from the hand, have 1 mana floating. She has not.
Yeah. Feline has not played a land this turn, although I don't know if they have one in their hand.
She has not played a land this turn. Yeah.
Okay, so confirmed by the judge that she's not played a land this turn.
So she's got 1 floating. She's got a land in play. If she pays for the High Tide, or pays for the Spell Pierce. She'll have 1 mana floating. Then she can play an island in her hand, tap that, have 4 mana, be able to turn about, or be able to play a Candelabra and untap 3 lands, and continue with the Storm process. So I guess, interesting. So she lets the High Tide get Spell Pierced
and plays
another High Tide. So
3
High Tides have been resolved.
And she's going to have access to 2 islands that she can actually tap for mana here.
Yep.
So 6, no mana floating, so 6 total.
Yep. So this is enough mana to cast Time Spiral again, or to float 2 mana and cast Turnabout for islands. So we're kind of past the point where, assuming a Time Spiral is not cast right here, we're past the point that Corbett's taxing counters are going to be effective, and he's really going to need to rely on Force of Wills from here on out. So let's see. Looks like we've got Candelabra in Feline's hand, and what else? So we're tapping 2 here, or sorry, tapping 3. Tapping an island for a Candelabra.
Okay.
So we've got 2 mana floating. We can tap the island.
At least another
get to
Time
5.
Spiral in Feline's hand.
Really?
Yeah, at least 1.
All right.
Preordain.
Preordains.
Go to 1.
Okay.
Force of Will, preordain again? Yeah.
Yep. Takes the Force of Will.
Taps for the mana.
Untaps all the
untaps
lands.
everything.
0 mana floating.
3, 6, 9, 12.
Yep. 12, so we're going
Might
to see
need
the
a bigger
Time
dice
Spiral.
here pretty soon.
Yep.
And
So
Time Spiral.
6 mana floating.
Okay, so you're in Corbett's seat right now.
Yep.
Are you feeling like you're dead here?
I'm
like
feeling pretty dead, but
Because he can get a grip full of Force of Wills again. Is there any way that he can stop this chain from happening? Like, she's going to have 6 mana floating after this as well.
yeah. So at this point, Corbett needs to hope that she bricks or has, less action than he draws Force of Wills. And
Like, if he goes Force Blue, Force Blue, Force Blue, he's very happy.
well, yes.
Because then he could actually stop her from doing multiple things and run her out of mana.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. But at this point, she's probably like 98% to win.
Okay. That's what I was really trying to get at here. So if you're in Corbett's seat, you feel awful.
Yeah.
You
So
just get to watch.
You open up the 7-card hand, and if you don't have any disruption, I think you
move on to the next game.
You ask her if she can win, and ask her to show you, and then you
Okay.
move on to the next game.
You got to be careful with that, though, right? You don't want to get.
And that's true.
Some people will take advantage of that situation.
Yeah.
It looks like there's some explaining happening on Feline's end of the table here. I'm sure Corbett's familiar. He's familiar with High
Yeah,
Tide.
no, he definitely knows how the deck works, and
Okay.
he realizes he's going to know when he can win and when he can't. And I think at this point, he's interested in finding out how good of an opponent his opponent is.
Like, if she just whips right through every interaction and is like, High Tide, make 6, do this, and just crisply knows, goldfish this 100 times while watching TV, or if it's like, I haven't exactly played this deck yet, but I'm going to try to figure it out as I go.
And he's looking to figure out whether there's anything that his opponent that he can exploit in his opponent in future games.
Okay.
And he hasn't looked at his hand yet.
No.
So it may be that he's got 3 Force of Wills and 3 blue cards in it. In which case, he will take it. So it looks like we're still resolving a Ponder.
I think there's been a judge call potentially.
Okay.
Okay. So there's been a question by the judge, and that question is currently being resolved.
Yep.
So we're going to find out more about that as things go on. We're using some of our coverage to help answer judgy questions, which is something that you're very used to.
I'm a level 2 judge, and I work a decent number of events locally.
But you play too.
I do, yeah. Mostly I do judge GPTs or pre-releases or release events. Sometimes local large tournaments. One of the local card stores has a monthly tournament that I judged once. And every now and then a PTQ, but usually only once I've already won a PTQ, because I want to play in as many PTQs as I can.
Understood. You won that one. You've won states here?
Yep. That was a long time ago. And
that wasn't that long ago.
It was back when Jund was a deck.
I remember.
The deck won the tournament. I just sort of dirtled around behind it.
Yeah, I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like our judge situation is getting worked out. I think that there was some discrepancy about a ponder, and then maybe some of the ponder hands touching a hand, ponder cards touching the rest of the hand or something, and trying to make sure that the cards that were supposed to go back to where they were. I'm not 100% on that. I kind of overheard a little of the judge chatter there, so we'll try to get some more info on that. But it looks like players are still stopped on the feature match, and this is just being reviewed currently.
Yep.
So.
And it's important to keep in mind, I know that sometimes I have trouble with this. When you're playing Ponder and Brainstorm in the same deck, remembering which one you're casting is really, really
important. And
also
preordain in this deck.
That's true.
So,
that's true.
You know, there's 3 1-mana cantrips, and I learned this lesson from Serum Visions. Now, I was able to train, because I played preordain from the day it came out to the day it went, and I love that card. I mean, I could just do it, you know, my hand just did that, and then when they banned it in Modern, the deck I played plays a few Serum Visions, and it's the opposite. And I managed to not pick up a game loss, but my opponents did. I had an opponent, you know, and I'm like, I gotta call a judge, and touched his hand, and that was it. So
the very first GP I played in was GP Columbus a few years ago, and while I was in a grinder, I actually ended up getting a game loss because I brainstormed with a ponder, basically.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so another high tide comes down. Looks like we're back to action here.
So ponder, high tide being cast.
And Corbett has taken this opportunity to look at his hand, and I see at least one Force of Will.
Yeah, he's got a Force of Will and a Show and Tell and some other blue card. It might be a Misdirection.
So Misdirection and Force of Will are the only relevant cards here, right?
Yeah, and Corbett at this point, like, he doesn't care about the mana, he doesn't care about the mana. He doesn't care about card selection. He cares about card draw. He wants to make sure that when she goes to cast a Meditate or a Blue Sun Zenith, he can stop it.
Okay.
Because like the mana is already out of control, so there's no sense fighting that at this point.
So that is a Cunning Wish. Okay.
Yeah, so Cunning Wish lets you go to your sideboard and pick an instant from that sideboard and put it into your hand. And we've got a Blue Sun Zenith coming out of the sideboard. So it looks like the plan is make a lot of mana, draw a lot of cards with Blue Sun Zenith. And once that happens, the plan gets repeated, except we make a lot more mana and we Blue Sun Zenith our opponent out.
Okay. It looks like, so this second Candelabra is gonna enable this whole interaction to happen, right?
Yeah. You know, and so we're probably in the teens of mana. But each of them is producing 4 mana.
Yeah. Now, as far as that judge call goes, there was a question about the ponder and which card was put back on top or in the hand, and through our coverage and through the interview, they were able to determine the identity of the card, which was correct. So it was downgraded to a warning.
Yep.
There wasn't a game loss or anything like that.
So we see here, Corbett actually tries to Misdirection the Blue Sun Zenith to himself.
I like that play.
But then we get a hard cast Force of Will to force through the Blue Sun Zenith. And it looks like there's 5 mana in the pool, plus an untapped land.
Yeah, I think there was 5. I think there was 10, and then 5 left after the Force of Will.
And looks like we have a question about whether the Blue Sun Zenith gets shuffled in first, which it doesn't, and that's properly resolved. So we're going to draw the cards, and then we're going to shuffle in Blue Sun Zenith.
Okay. So I'm not sure how many it was for, but we'll see it counted out here.
I'd imagine it's for like 10 plus.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. 10 plus indeed, sir. Shuffle away.
All right. And from
so
here...
is it scoop time for Corbett? Like, does that spell matter that much?
Yeah, so
I mean, it
Corbett,
seems like-
Corbett has lost the game.
Yeah.
There's no way he is winning this game now.
Okay. So now it's just information gathering.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 25 minutes left on the clock, and Feline's going to be up a game.
Yeah.
Corbett's deck can win very quickly.
Corbett's deck wins very quickly.
So.
It's possible that he's taking that into consideration. Like he's obviously not slow playing, but making his opponent, go through the motions and eat up the clock favors him in that he's the deck that can win quickly. And so if we get into a situation where he wins the second game and needs to force a tie in the third game, that's a possibility.
Oh, okay.
So mana being generated, there's a turnabout. It's probably for artifacts. No, it's for lands. I guess there wasn't enough mana in the pool.
There was 0.
Okay. So we untap the lands. So you can turn about your own lands to generate mana. If you have enough mana floating, you can also turn about your artifacts to untap the candelabras to generate even more mana. You just have to have enough floating to use a candelabra.
I think Corbett just said I have F6.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want for the rest of this turn. I'm just going to sit over here and make sure that you don't screw it up. Also, that is one thing. All right, and Corbett says he's had enough.
Yep. So she says, I have the Blue Sun Zenith here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to untap my candelabras. I'm going to generate a lot of mana with each of them. I'm going to generate like 16 to 20 mana with each of them.
It was 20, so because it was 5. Okay, yeah, so because the high tie count was 5.
Okay, yeah. So each of the lands tap for 5, so you tap them for 20, and then you untap for 4, so you gain 16 for each candelabra.
Yep.
So she could generate 60 plus mana, and Blue Sun Zenith Corbett out.
Hi, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. That's Joe Bono.
Howdy, folks.
And we are going very deep on a match here between Feline Longmore and Corbett Gray.
Corbett Gray.
Corbett is running Sneak and Show, so he's trying to cheat in huge monsters for very, very cheap and win the game through that.
Yeah.
And Feline is running High Tide.
Yep.
So a monocolored combo deck here that turn 3, turn 4.
Yeah, it's turn 3, turn 4 deck. So
pretty consistent though. I mean, does this deck fizzle very often?
If your opponent is not disrupting you, it does not fizzle.
Okay.
Like if you get to turn 4, and your opponent is not interacting with you, you win the game.
Okay.
But there are lots of ways that you can interact with it. You can play a Thalia, you can play a Lodestone Golem, you can play counter spells, you can play discard spells. But it's also fairly resilient. When I was playing it earlier today, there was one game where I ended up beating 3 Lodestone Golems.
3? So you had to pay 3 extra for everything?
So what happened was I was able to Cunning Wish for a rebuild when he only had...
I don't know what that does.
So rebuild is an instant that returns all artifacts to each player, to their...
Oh, it's like Hurkyl's Recall?
It's Hurkyl's Recall, but for both players. It's not targeted.
Oh, okay.
So
looks like Feline's going to take a mulligan here.
Yep. So he had 2 of the Lodestone Golems out. In response to the third one, I rebuilt him. And then on my turn, I was able to snap the last one to bounce it and then go off. And there was like another game where my opponent cast Trinisphere, Chalice of the Void, Chalice of the Void. And again, like I was able to rebuild him. So like there are a lot of options. So
rebuilding sounds so nice. It's like, oh, I'll rebuild you.
I say it very aggressively. Yeah, I rebuilt him.
Yeah, rebuilt that guy.
Right. So
Corbett's led off with a... Oh, that's a weird one. Why did he do that?
So he must
really
have
want
some
to be able
blanks
to
in his
shuffle.
hand, wants to shuffle them away.
So he led off with a Lotus Petal and a Scalding Tarn. He cracked the Petal.
Yeah.
To Brainstorm.
And it looks like he kept a 1-lander.
I see a City of Traders in his hand.
City of Traders. We got Emrakul. He put back Emrakul and a Gristlebrand.
Okay.
So, he's clearly good on monsters.
So he kept a monster-heavy hand.
Yeah.
So if he has Show and Tell, does he just go for it? Just play City of Traders, Show and Tell?
So if he has more cantrips, it probably makes sense to cantrip for one more turn, looking for some protection.
Because Feline's deck's not going to go off next turn. Okay.
So he's got a Misdirection.
And there's a little bit of something.
Okay.
All right, now that is I know he has a City of Traders in his hand as well.
So he's got a ton of mana.
Yeah, he can. I mean, I don't know if Spell Pierce is a thing, but he can play around it. Main phase Brainstorm for Feline.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he actually has the Show and Tell or the Sneak Attack. I'm not seeing it, but it's possible. So brainstorm, put back 2 cards, and then shuffle them away. So kind of like Ancestral Recall if you have 2 blanks in your hand. And we may see yet another cantrip here. Yep, so
Ponder.
into Ponder.
I see a Brainstorm right on the top.
Yeah.
And
So
draws
we
a
got
Force of
Will.
Will. That seems pretty
Looks
relevant.
like a blue heavy hand. I'm not sure if Feline has. Oh no, she's got at least 1 island.
All right, pay 5.
Is this the
This is going to be a
okay
sneak attack.
sneak attack?
The reason why you paid 5 is because you couldn't
didn't have an
pay
option, yeah.
proper. Yeah. So, is this auto? Like you just snap Force of Will this?
I
Looks like
think you
Feline
have
does.
to,
Do
yeah.
you think so too? It feels like it, right? This is one of the. Like if they play one of the cards that the deck's named after, don't you just have to counter that?
Generally, and you can take
I mean,
a
is that
gambit.
good legacy strategy?
You can take a gambit here that your opponent, like if you know you can go off on the next turn, you can take a gambit that your opponent doesn't have a Lotus Petal in hand. So it looks like Corbett wins the Force of Will war there.
So
And
he needs, what like
He needs to
Emrakul
untap.
is ideal here.
yeah,
like,
I think
either
monster is
Griselbrand.
fine.
He has both in his
But
hand.
Emrakul, I like.
Pay a red.
So actually, he's probably going to Griselbrand and then draw, and if he hits a red source, then
Griselbrand.
he gets to play that red source and then get the Emrakul and just kill.
Yes,
Feline here.
because it's just red to activate it.
Yeah.
No tapping or anything silly
And
like
like
that.
there are so many red sources in his deck.
There it is.
Yeah,
And he's going to sneak in Emrakul.
Yep.
That resolves. There's no stifles floating around. Triggers, resolve, and we're
Dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that really showed off. It's interesting because I think that game 1, showed what Feline's deck is trying to do.
Yep.
Kind of search, grind, go off. And second game showed what Corbett's deck was trying to do, which is like, here.
It's true. And you see in both cases, they were able to work through their opponent's disruption. There were multiple Force of Wills cast in the first game. In the second game, there was counter war over the sneak attack. So the decks are resilient. It's not just a little bit of hate that can stop them. You do need to have a fair amount. So at this point, it may be useful to talk about sideboarding.
Okay.
And looking at Corbett's deck, he actually he's deviated a little bit in the sideboard from some of the traditions, and he doesn't have any Pyroblast or Red Elemental Blast or
Those are
anything like
traditionally very good cards, right? Efficient.
Yeah, and so he actually doesn't have anything for this game. Some people might bring in Leyline of Sanctity, which is the white Leyline that gives you hexproof, but that's actually not a good card in this matchup.
Why isn't it? You can.
So you'd think
Stop
that
a
it would
Zenith.
stop a Blue Sun Zenith, but eventually your opponent, like if your opponent goes off and is at a place that they can Zenith you.
I'm looking now.
She's going to be able to Cunning Wish and get an Echoing Truth or a Wipe Away or something along those lines and bounce the Leyline. Uh-oh. There's a Wipe Away.
What does that do?
Wipe Away is a 3 blue 1 instant that bounces target permanent, and it has why can't I remember the name?
Buyback, Storm.
No,
Kicker?
it's the thing that
Death Touch.
prevents you from casting spells.
Split second.
Split second, yes. It's a split second bounce spell.
Okay.
So you wipe away something, that thing goes back to the hand.
Okay. So you need multiple ley lines.
Yeah. But Corbett's played this match. He knows that Echoing Truth is usually a card.
Yeah.
And even if you have multiple ley lines, you could wipe away one and then time spiral to get it back in the wipe away back in your deck and do it again.
And
so
you look at your opponent like, we're going to be here for a while.
Yep.
Keep doing it.
So Corbett doesn't really have it. I think he probably boarded 0 cards.
Okay.
And I'd imagine, so Feline has a defense grid that she could bring in. I'm not super excited about anything that she could bring in. I think maybe she brings in a Flusterstorm or a Pact of Negation.
Okay.
But that's about all I would do. So
Corbett's mulliganing here, by the way.
game 2 and 3 are going to look like a lot like game 1, I think.
Cheers.
Cheers. So Corbett's mulliganing.
How, like, does this deck mulligan well?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
It just needs a few key pieces.
Yeah. So there are combo decks in Legacy and in other formats that are 2-card combo decks that tend to mulligan well because all you're looking to do is find those 2 pieces, and so it doesn't matter how many cards you have in hand.
Okay.
You also have, there are also combo decks like Storm and like High Tide that don't rely on 2 specific pieces necessarily, but rather tend to rely on amassing a certain amount of resources.
Yeah, okay.
So in High Tide's case, like, the resources are a High Tide and a draw spell or untap spell or both in one in Time Spiral and enough islands.
Right.
So going down to 5 is really rough for High Tide, whereas you can win games from 5 or 4 with a sneak and show deck.
Okay.
You know, you can have Lotus Petal, City of Traders, Gristlebrand, Show and Tell, and just go off on turn 1 with a 4-card hand.
Okay.
You'd prefer not to. You'd prefer to be able to have some backup for that.
I see Corbett's examining his 6 here.
Yeah. So we had a quick flash from the High Tide player, and I think we saw a Brainstorm and a Force of Will. So definitely there's at least one Force of Will.
Corbett is going to mulligan to 5, it looks like. Now, is it starting to get a little constricting for Corbett, or does he feel okay still? I mean, this feels to me...
He's not happy about this, but he knows he can still win from this position.
Okay.
And part of the question is, how good of a hand does his opponent have? How much disruption does she have? At this point, Corbett's probably saying, I need to... my game plan is probably going to be land a quick fatty and hope that my opponent kept a disruption light hand.
Okay.
Doesn't have Force of Wills.
No Force of Wills in it.
But the hand that he opens for 5 is going to dictate that a lot. And there aren't going to be many hands that he's going to mulligan at 5.
Okay.
He's going to mulligan hands that have no disruption and no combo pieces. He's going to mulligan hands that have 0 lands, but like most 1-landers with a combo piece and a Brainstorm, he will keep.
Well, I see a Ponder, an Emrakul, and 3 unknowns. I think 2 sneak attacks.
Are those sneak attacks?
I don't know.
Okay. I see an Ancient Tomb, a Ponder. Is it possible there's 3 Emrakuls?
No, I think there's 2 Emrakuls and something on the left over there that I can't see.
And the far left is a Ponder.
Okay, so it's a Ponder. All right. So he can't cast stuff yet? Is that what's going on here?
I think it's...
Those are both Emrakuls.
Yeah, 2 Emrakuls, Ponder, Mountain, and Ancient Tomb.
Ugh, so no blue source?
No blue source, and even...
And 2 completely dead cards? I think 4 seems better than this, doesn't it?
This is real close. Like, if he hits a blue source right off the top, he's potentially in pretty good shape. Yeah, thanks, Corbett.
Thank you, Corbett. What a sweetheart.
He wants us to know how tough of a decision this is.
Yeah, he's a bit of a showman.
It's true.
Corbett.
He likes the attention.
I think he's probably showing the camera like, would you keep this?
Yeah.
Would you keep this, Joe?
It's a gamble.
He's on the draw.
I think like you have to go for a live tell on your opponent and say, how happy did you seem with the game?
It's that close. Like you're doing
so.
tiebreakers on like, does my opponent seem happy? Yeah,
like
it's tough.
It's a bad hand, but 4 is also really
We are
rough.
being told Corbett is unhappily keeping his 5.
Yeah.
We knew that. We know Corbett.
Yeah. It may not have been,
he's probably
what would you
talking
guys
about
do, camera? It might have been, look how bad I run.
Yes. He is well within Corbett's range.
Yes. So we have Preordain. Was it 2 on bottom or 1 on bottom?
This
right,
needs to
slow
be a
roll
blue
himself.
source. It is a Force of Will,
Force of
which
Will
isn't
is not the worst.
No. Both on the bottom with Preordain, so
that's
Feline
good
just drew a
news.
fresh card, and
Corbett.
main phase 2, 3. So Time Spiral, Preordain.
Oh,
and
did she keep a 1-lander?
Ooh.
I think this may be a 1-lander.
And no fetch here to get those.
And she's Brainstorm locked.
Ooh,
so she's got 2 lands.
So she knows
on the
that
top.
nothing good is coming for a while.
Yeah.
And Corbett has a little bit more of a spring in his step, but he still needs something to happen. Preordain, Dig, dig. So these are both going to the bottom, right? Oh, there was an
there's
island
an island.
there. Okay.
Yeah. So
Draw a card
draw
for
the
the
island.
turn, play it.
Yeah.
Corbett
And
said
so
something.
Corbett has to know that his opponent keeping a one-land hand like that probably means that her hand is stacked.
It's just insane.
Yeah.
It's all spells. I mean, what else do you need to know? Right?
Yep.
All right, Merchant Scroll. Now, does Corbett have a blue spell that he can?
He's got the Ponder.
He can ponder. He can pitch the Ponder to force the
Yeah.
will, but
And it looks like he picked up a Show and Tell too. So really, he just needs the blue source.
so he's got to be very selective about what he ends up force of willing here, or
Yeah. So I think, ooh, that's the worst blue source he can draw.
why
I
is that
think
bad?
Because it's
'cause it goes
gets
away.
expended. Yeah.
Sure.
Um,
So I think that Feline had to discard at the
Yeah.
end step there.
and she discarded a Time Spiral.
All right, so you still just going to blow this thing on a Ponder and try to dig for
I
more
don't
blue?
think you blow it on a Ponder. I think you go for the Show and Tell.
Okay.
Because if the Show and Tell resolves, you probably win.
Okay.
And if it doesn't, it gets a Force of Will out of your opponent's hand.
Okay, but he gets to force a will back
Oh.
here.
Yeah.
And if this resolves, then he just gets an Emrakul, right?
Yeah. And like
Is this resolving?
It looks like it is.
There's a pause here that is a little uncomfortable. Tickety tick. Corbett is waiting. I don't know what that.
I'd imagine she has to snap Force
They're
Will.
doing it.
So there goes a Defense Grid and yeah.
And a Grizzlebrand.
Grizzlebrand, yeah.
Now, does this keep happening? I can't remember. On Show and Tell, is it that's it? We're done here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Isn't there one where it's like you can keep going? or something?
Hypergenesis and Eureka are the ones that keep
Okay.
going. So Corbett immediately draws 7. The reason he's doing this on his turn is if he hits a Lotus Petal, he wants to put it in play so that his Spell Pierces are live.
He has a land drop to hit here too.
That's also true. And like if he hits
see an island.
a Ponder, he may want to use it.
So Corbett's in a pretty good spot here, right?
This
He's sitting at 14. At 13. He has another 7 cards at his disposal if he needs it.
Yep. Although, on the other hand, like the Defense Grid being out,
What does that do?
it makes spells that you cast on your opponent's turn cost more. I believe cost 2 more to cast.
Okay.
So Corbett wants to make sure that he makes his land drop so that Force of Wills are live on his opponent's turn.
During each player's turn, each other player's spells cost 3 more to play.
3 more to play. Okay.
So it
he
kills his Force of Wills, or
Yeah.
actually he can play one of them.
He plays the Ancient Tomb, so he can play one of them. And the good news for Corbett here is if he untaps, he almost certainly wins. He discards an Emrakul, shuffles it in.
Now, kind of cool as well for Corbett is that if he does have to use his Ancient Tomb, he will be at 8. So he still does have.
8 is exactly the same as 14.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true.
It's 13.
Actually, no, it's not. 9 is the same as 14, but because if he has to tap that and pay for the Force of Will, he'll go to 7.
Right. Okay, so
again,
that's
like
another
1 point
tight
life totals
spot,
are really
yes.
mattering for Corbett here. It mattered in game 1, and it may matter in this game. So it's slightly unclear exactly where we are in the turn. Like we had a shuffle from Emrakul. Okay, so
We were on the end. We were on the.
okay, so
Untap?
we get land pass.
Why is that land tapped?
It's unclear. It may just be like sloppily
Oh, okay.
untapped.
Like this could be Feline being like. So he can just play whatever he wants. He's going to go to 6 here, because this counts for him too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
During each player's turn. So Feline can't cast hardly
So
anything.
we got
That
a
is
sneak
a sneak attack.
We got a volcanic
That is
island.
a volcanic, and I'm assuming there's an Emrakul. Yeah, I see an Emrakul still peeking out there.
So looks
Make
like
an Emrakul attack you.
boosh.
And extends the hand, and Corbett
Wow.
is able to battle through mulliganing to 5.
Yeah.
And with a pretty tough keep. I mean, you want one of those Emrakuls in your hand, but the other one's
It's
nothing.
dead, yeah.
So he
No,
essentially had a 4-card hand with no blue sources.
he ripped in really, really well. He ripped the
Hey,
Force of
welcome
Will.
back to the booth. Star City Games. Open in Seattle. My name is Marshall Sutcliffe. This is Judge Joe Bono, and we were just
Hey, everybody.
covering a little bit of Legacy here.
Yeah.